Hey everyone, it's Jack, and today I'm going to take a look at BROS, or BROS, based on Kubuntu. BROS is a Brazilian distro, and like I said, it's based on Kubuntu, but even better from what I hear. So I'm here to find out if that's the case. I remember checking out another Brazilian distro a while back. I think it was Big Linux, and really loved it. And so BROS has kind of got my curiosity piqued here, and being based on Kubuntu, that's also got me curious. So I got to look at this. I'm out at the website right now at their download page. Looks like everything's in Portuguese, I would guess. I don't know really. But anyway, the language barrier isn't in my way because I can still see the download button and the type here. So we got our LTS and our regular, and I want to go with the regular because that's based on 23.04, the latest and greatest. I always like the latest, so why not? I'm just going to come up here, click on this, and I'm going to load it in, and let's check it out. Okay, and here we are at our boot screen, so can't wait to try this. So I'm going to go with the first choice, try or install BROS. So let's give this a ring here. And here we are, live and unhinged as usual. And BROS, like I said, I'm assuming BR is a designation for Brazil. So very straightforward name here. And this should just take a minute to get booted in. And then we'll take a look at our live desktop. I'm assuming that's where it's going to go. Or maybe it's going to give us a choice of an installer or a live desktop. And here's a nice background already. And it looks like we got our little splash screen so we can either try or install. Just real quick, I'm going to just hit the try first. We could just go straight into the installer, but I just want to get a quick sneak peek at the desktop. And then we'll jump straight into the install. So now it's booting in, and really actually a quite fast boot up for a live version. A lot of times the live versions take a lot longer to boot into. However, this is just kind of getting right to it. So I like that. Nice. And really cool looking splash screen there with the little vector graphics design. Quite cool. And so now we're coming into our desktop, and there's our background again, and everything's kind of loading in. So there's our BROS installer, and really nice looking panel down here at the bottom, which I'm assuming is, it kind of looks like Plank, but I think that might be maybe even Latte dock. Let's do a right click and find out. Latte dock. So it's using Latte here for this panel, and I like the blur effect in the background, really beautiful. So let's get right to it. Now I'm even more excited to try it out. So I'm going to double click in the installer here, and it should come up with our forget. But anyway, here's our first one, default to English, which is good. So let's go to continue, and automatically detected our English layout. And then we have our normal installation, download updates while installing BROS. That's good. And I'm also going to check this box, install third-party software for graphics and Wi-Fi hardware and additional media formats. I recommend typically that you would check that, but you do have the option to leave it unchecked if you wish. But in my opinion, you're going to have a lot more compatibility by checking the box, especially if you're running Wi-Fi and so forth, and you want to have your codecs as well. And here we got our install type. The guided type is going to default to use the entire disk. You can also set up an LVM if you wish, or have it encrypted, or do a manual install if you have, say, maybe a separate home partition or something like that. But the guided, the first default choice here, use entire disk, will destroy everything on your disk. So if you're doing this on a production machine and you don't know that, I just let you know. Otherwise, you'll lose all your data if you didn't back it up. So we're going to hit install and skip through my babbling, and everything looks good here. And I'm going to continue. And now our time zone is set to the Eastern time zone, which looks quite perfect to me in the US again. And it shows down in the bottom, creating an ext4 file system by default. So very good. Then I'll just give ourselves a username and type in a password. And then that's all there is to it. And the computer name is good for me. I'm going to require password to log in. And you can also choose to log in automatically if you wish. So if you don't have anybody you got to worry about there, log in automatically is good too. Typically, I like to have the password login. That way we can kind of see the login screen after the install. So Gonna just let this go, and it will take a few minutes. I'm guessing maybe 5 minutes or so, and then it'll be all done. So I'm gonna pause the video, and I'll be right. All right, and it looks like the install finished, so didn't take too long. I'm just gonna go ahead and shut this down, remove the ISO, and I'll be right back. Okay, booting in now. So if everything went okay, we should be in our live desktop pretty quick. Oh, and a nice splash screen there. I like that. Very cool. Looked like a little shot of Rio there. Nice. Okay, so that was a quick boot up. I'm just gonna go ahead and log in here, and as you can see down here in the lower right left corner, we got our Plasma X11 by default, which is cool. I prefer the X11, but you also have the option to choose Wayland if you want. For me, I have a lot less issues with X11, so I'm going to stay with that and then just log right in. And there's that cool splash screen again. I like that KDE splash there. A fine choice. And here's our background. So really nice looking wallpaper too. I like the wallpaper. And it's showing updates available there on Discover. I guess I can go ahead and view that because updates are usually things I like to get out of the way right off the bat after a fresh install. And at the same time, we can take a look at Discover. And here are the updates. So they all look pretty good there. And our Ubuntu release and so forth, OpenSSL, Firefox 113.0.1. Very cool. So looks pretty up to date there. I'm just going to go ahead and hit update all and let it do its thing and authenticate, and very cool. So it looks like the install is going really fast too, nice and snappy. And as you can see, we do have the blur effect in the background of the Latte dock here on the bottom. So I'm liking that. And I'm going to open up the console real quick because since we got all this open, I'm just going to do a top or an H-top if it's available. And beautiful blur effect again in the background of the console. So it's pretty cool there. They got the transparency, looks like all the way up with a blur. Just going to try H-top just to see if it's in there, which it's not. So I'm just going to do top and magnify that a bit. And as you can see here, right now it's 1.774 used. Of course, we got Discover running here at the same time, so it's not actually idle. And we got that up to date. So I'm going to just temporarily close Discover here. And now you can see it drop down to 1.3. So that's kind of consistent with what you might see on a GNOME desktop, roughly. And that could drop even a little bit more. But I do know that when you have things like the blur effect and a Latte dock itself can be a little bit on the heavy side. But again, it's really comparable to a GNOME desktop here, what I'm seeing right now. So nothing I would be worried about. And also compared to Windows, it's just a fraction of the resources that you would use on Windows as well. But the KDE desktop is definitely one of my favorites. It's probably the prettiest, most feature-rich, although I use the XFCE desktop mostly. But as far as comparing the two with features and so forth, that's kind of a toss-up. But KDE probably is the winner when it comes to just bling. So going to just close that out there with a Control-C. And let's explore a bit, shall we? First of all, let's do a uname-r and just kind of take a look at our kernel. So we're running 6.2.0-20 generic. Nice. So very up-to-date kernel. I'm liking that. And I think I'm just going to jump back into Discover here, which is right here on our Latte dock. And since it loaded all the metadata, it shouldn't take too long to kind of reload that back in. And I think it's doing another update check in the loading. And here we go. We got our most popular and editor's choice and so forth already in here. And what do we have here in our settings? So here you can see the Flatpak is enabled by default. I'm liking that. So there's FlatHub, very cool. And our Linux vendor firmware service, very cool. And then we have our PPAs here. So under our BROS 23.4 default sources, you can see our Ubuntu Lunar and our Lunar main sources and so forth. Sources aren't checked though, by the way, but which they normally wouldn't be. But we got our main, then we got our Debian repos here. Nice. Debian Lunar updates, backports, security. So really quite robust. I am liking that. And then here you can have the option to install the Discover Snap backend. So if you like snaps or prefer them over the Flatpaks, then we can hit install here and add snaps to them as well. Nice. So I can see some situations where I would want to do that, and I'm just going to let that install. I mean, I would be cool with having snaps available on here. Doesn't mean you have to download them, but I like the snaps, and in many cases I prefer them over the Flatpaks, even though they're both great. But sometimes the snaps just feel a little bit more lightweight to me. Whether that's my imagination or not, I don't know. So if I come back here to all apps, and then if I just do a search for something on here, then we should be able to see our other options. So if I just come up here and do a search for something, like the old standby Inkscape, let's see what kind of options we get here. It looks like it's already installed by default. Okay, cool. Bonus. So let's try something like OBS Studio. See what we get with. So here's OBS Studio. So if I click on that, instead of going directly to install, then we have our sources up here. And if I select that, then you can see we can choose from FlatHub or Ubuntu. And it's showing 29.0.2 for our version. So that is impressive too. A very up-to-date copy there. Jump in here and do something kind of proprietary like maybe Telegram. Just kind of see Flatpak. So Flatpak's showing up here as our only option. So that means it's only available as a Flatpak. Actually, we might have to restart Discover after installing that snap thing. I'm just going to close that and restart it real quick. Jump back in and let's see if it shows up in our settings here. So there's our Flatpak. And here we got it, Snap. So Snap is in there. Nice. So that is all good. I go back to all applications, and then KDE Live, I think, is available in a Snap. So if I hit that, we ought to see that. And it looks like here's our sources. And there we go. So we got FlatHub and Snap right there. So both versions you can choose from. So I'm liking that. Very good. And it also is showing that KDE Live is installed by default. Another cool thing here. I'm going to close that and just jump down to our main menu here, and we'll open that up. And very cool. I like the main menu. Very straightforward. So let's take a look at this since we're here. And again, we got the blur effect happening in the background there. Very beautiful. Here we have our Kate Notepad QQ. Very neat. I think that's a cute version of the Windows type notepad. I'm liking that. Bonus. And under graphics, here by default, we have some pretty cool stuff already by default. Right out of the box, we got Blender, Darktable. Wow. GIMP, of course. GPic, GwenView, which is a picture viewer. Image Magic, utility. And we have Inkscape installed. Krita, that's another great app for doing animations and artwork, and really feature rich. Ocular, Pinta, Scanlight. So if I wanted to use some kind of graphic utilities, I would already be set up by default, even with Darktable, which I think is kind of like a equivalent or alternative to Adobe Lightroom, I think it's called. So yeah, very cool. Like seeing that too right out of the box. And then moving on, we have our internet. So we got Firefox web browser by default, and then our KDE Connect to connect to your phone. I can use that with my iPhone. Conversation, chat, utility, KROC, LibreWolf. That's another internet browser based on Firefox. QBitTorrent. I like that too. That's a great BitTorrent. And then we got our Telegram desktop app. So I already had that installed, even though I typed that into the Discover there. And then under media, we got Ardour 7, which is a really nice audio device, audio workstation. You can use Ardour to record an orchestra, create audio and MIDI loops, edit the perfect vocal take, mix a live show with effects, dub a video, and master your tracks for digital distribution. Wow. Yeah, Ardour is pretty cool. And so if you're really into sound engineering, so to speak, although that's kind of a fancy name. But if we pop in here, you can choose from templates there, including just an empty template. But when you open up Order, then you get some of your default settings here for your audio system. And for me, I would just hit start and let it go with the default, and then it'll load any plugins that might be available. And here it's showing that your system has a limit for amount of locked memory. And that's a pretty normal thing. I've seen that with Ardour. And here it says you can view the memory limit with ulimit-L. And it's normally controlled by etc/security/limits.com. And so by tweaking that, I think all you'd have to do is match it with the memory that shows up under ulimit. I don't recall now, but it's easily Googleable if that's an issue for you. But Ardour is really a very feature-rich audio workstation here, software. So it's really something, if you're into editing audio and so forth, this is a great way to go. Really impressed to see that on here. I just got to discard the session here and press on. And so we got Elisa here, Haruna Media Player, KDE Live installed. Very cool. WinFF. There's a nice player I haven't seen in a while. And Xado or something. Very cool. And then under Office, we have Evolution, Ocular. Ocular is a PDF viewer, and Only Office. So Kubuntu, I believe, uses LibreOffice, and so we have Only Office on here by default. Personally, I really like Only Office, so I am cool with that. I found myself a lot of times installing Only Office anyway. So for me, that's just kind of a bonus. Although I do like LibreOffice too. They have some great features as well that I like, especially when it comes to editing PDF files. LibreOffice Draw is great for that. So yeah, they both have their advantages, but Only Office for me feels a lot more like Microsoft Office, and it seems to have a better compatibility in Calc, but you know, that could just be me too. But I do like the snappiness as well of Only Office. And then our settings here. So we got our input methods, Pulse Audio, Wacom Tablet Finder, nice. And then our system, we have btop. Okay, so I didn't even realize that was installed here. I might as well just launch that. That is like another variation on htop, and btop is quite a beautiful utility. I think it was Mustafa who recommended that to me one time, a long time ago, and it really is nice. So here we're showing used as 1.58, which again is not too bad considering that I got a few things open here and I've done some playing around, but a very beautiful graphical environment here, btop++. And then of course we got our Dolphin file viewer, our info center, which I think is probably related to drivers and so forth, but our system info, that's what it is. So since we got it open, might as well take a look at it. So KDE Plasma 5.27.4, quite very up to date with Qt 5.15, and again our 6.2.0-20 kernel. We're running the X11 platform right now, and of course you do have the option to run Wayland if you can run Wayland without issues. I'm not one of them, but I think there's people out there that can run it without issues. And then, of course, we have things like our devices, CPU info, and so forth, firmware, USB devices, and all that good stuff. And then graphics. So if you want to get in there and kind of see this stuff on a higher level, that's a good shortcut to get in there. We can edit our menu in here. So if you want to give this launcher a few tweaks, we can just go into the KDE menu editor here and just change things around. If you kind of know what you're doing, you can put new items in here and so forth. So you can manually add stuff into the KDE menu if you prefer to do that. Maybe you installed something that doesn't show up in the menu. Menu editor might be an easy way to do that. Then we have our Muon package manager. So if I bring that up, that's different than the Discover that we were looking at. And this is, I think, more like a front end to a terminal, kind of like Synaptic. It's probably maybe a reskinned version of Synaptic. I don't know, but it looks really cool. I like this. And if we go in here and go into About Muon, you can get more information on it here. And this is version 5.8. So that's kind of nice. And in here, we could just actually just search whatever it is we're looking for. And here we can see that it's installed. And this is very fast because we're not dealing with graphics or anything. It's all text-based here. Like I said, pretty much a front end. And for me, if I wasn't going to use the terminal, this would probably actually be my next choice because I think it would be fast. And I pretty much know what I'm looking for anyway most of the time. And then System Manager, Monitor, and Time Shift. Time Shift lets you turn on restore points. So if you do an update and then the update hoses something, you can use Time Shift to get back to that restore point and get out of trouble. And it's pretty automatic, so it's nice. And then our System Monitor is kind of equivalent to the Task Manager in Windows, except it's even cooler. And here we got our memory disk and CPU usage here, and our networks, network speed and system and so forth. And then Latte. So Latte, you can see, is using about 255.9 megs of RAM. Notepad QQ, 214 and so forth. System Monitor itself is using about 15% CPU, so it's kind of taxing a little bit there. But this kind of gives you an overview of your resource usage, and then if we click on applications, then we can kind of see what is using up resources as well. And so nothing on here that's really too earth-shattering as far as resource usage. As you can see, Latte is a little bit up there, 255. So of the 1.5 gigs of RAM, Latte is using part of that as well. Then we got our history here, so we can monitor and see a graphical version here with some cool looking charts. And then our processes. So this is kind of what most people would relate to as far as Task Manager on a Windows machine. So here you can see, but it's nicer than Task Manager. And here we can see the CPU graphical layout here on the usage. Really cool. And again, Latte docs right at the top, memory-wise, but not CPU. So that's cool. And again, System Monitor uses a little bit of CPU there, so that's going to kind of account for a lot of that. And then we have our utilities. What's in here? So we have Cryptomator. Is that like a, not sure what that is, like a crypto wallet maybe? I got to open that and see. And so there it is. Thanks for choosing Cryptomator to protect your files. Oh, okay. It has nothing to do with cryptocurrency. I got kind of a trading mindset, so I thought it was related to cryptocurrency and maybe it was a crypto wallet. However, it is something to protect your files. So if you got some folders that have some very sensitive information in it, like maybe bank documents or stuff like that, or credit card numbers in a text file, which I would not recommend. But if you have secret information like that, passwords and so forth, that's very sensitive, you can encrypt those folders to kind of keep prying eyes out of there. So I like that. It's a great thing to have on here by default. Really like what we have available here just by default. And then again, we got Latte. So those are our Latte doc, Notepad, which we looked at, Spectacle, which is a screenshot. So you can capture screenshots on your desktop, Text Info, and WinScribe. And I'm not sure what WinScribe is. It sounds familiar, but another keep your secrets thing. Cool. So if we hit get started here, looks like it's something you got to sign up for. It seems to be maybe like a web app. And so I'm probably not going to go to all the trouble of signing up and everything, but still not really sure what it is exactly. But under pricing, it looks like it is a premium type app, something that's not free apparently. And if we go into features, then it kind of gives you a little bit of an overview here. And it looks like something that's kind of cloud-based. Maybe we keep your files on. Not really sure there. Don't really know much about WinScribe, but moderately interesting anyway. And since we're in Firefox, we might as well just double check the version here. I think it was like 1.13 or something when we were doing the update. 113.0.1, 64-bit, looking good. So I think I'll jump out of that. And I think that kind of covers the installed apps there. I'm really impressed with the installed apps that are in there by default. I like that KDE Live is in there as well. That's cool. That saves me a little bit of install. It is really set up nicely. So the installed apps really go above and beyond what I was expecting. And let's see what we have pinned by default here on our Latte dock. So we have a ChatGPT Plasmoid. Hey, that's cool. I use ChatGPT quite a bit. And so it looks like I can just open this up and log into it and just have instant access to ChatGPT, even if my web browser isn't open. So I am really liking that. It even has an I'm a Pro button there. So if you're using GPT-4, you're signed up as a premium user, which I think runs around $20 a month, then you can pop in there, and I think it'll hook you into your Pro account. I think that's what that is. Or if you don't use ChatGPT, you can sign up right here. I really like that. That is very cool. I like the idea that that Plasmoid is on there. And then here we got LibreWolf. So that's an alternative to Firefox. And then we have our Dolphin. And I'm liking the icon there. I'm curious as to the icon theme, and really looks nice. I like the black and the rounded windows here. So it is themed really nice. And we're using a light theme, and it still looks great. I mean, I'm really liking this theme. I know I'm kind of partial to dark themes. I'm opening up Pinta right now. And Pinta looks like it's a paint program, probably equivalent to MS Paint, but it looks a little nicer actually overall. But I could just jump in here and create something. And there we have a rectangle. Actually, that's a selector. If I want to actually create a rectangle, I guess I would go down here. And so apparently when you select something, then it would be within that selection. But now I can probably do a full screen, a full canvas. So there's our rectangle. And then if you want a solid one, I think we would maybe just do something like this. Got rounded corners or not solid. But these seem to be vector-based to me, which I like that. That's kind of cool. And then what if I take my fill here and I can fill it in? So nice. And then I can choose some colors, fill in the square, and then fill in my other one here. And this guy, very cool. And then we have our selector, so I could select this. And actually, that'll move selected pixels. Wow, okay, so if I hit this thing and then just kind of surround it, maybe that's how that works, and then click this guy. Oh, okay, and it'll just like cut and paste it. Wow, so it took the canvas and everything with it. Cool. Otherwise, I could use my magic wand here, come over here and maybe select this guy, and then I'll just select the whole square. So now if I go over here and maybe hit this where it says move selection, or you can use M as a shortcut and then just slide it down here. Actually, that just literally moved the selection. So let me go back to here and grab it with this. There we go. And then just stick it down there. And so, yeah, not exactly a masterpiece, but it's moderately cool. Actually, if it was in a famous museum right now, there'd be a lot of people saying, whoa, that is deep. It's a masterpiece. This guy's amazing. So I like it. I'm just going to close out there. And then, of course, we got K, which is a great text editor, really nice. And you can edit scripts and everything else with it. KCalc, always handy to have a calculator there. I use a calculator quite often. So I like having handy access to that. And it's already there by default. Loving it. Discover, system settings. And then here we got our volume control settings here. And then if you need to tweak your settings, we can jump in here and check one of these boxes if you want to force mute or show virtual devices. And then here we can select this and it'll configure our audio devices. So that'll open up our system settings, which is also accessible through this icon right here. But we just kind of took a shortcut. And then our network settings, we got our wired network here. And then our hidden icons are available just by clicking on this little selector. We got our notifications, updates, clipboard, night color control, display config, hard disk, power management, and so forth. And then finally, we got our calendar here. So if I hit our clock, we can bring up our calendar, and beautiful looking calendar. Also, we can right click on our clock, and I think we could probably just go into configure digital clock if we wanted to change the settings here. And that was a right click I did on there. And here it's showing the date. If you want to show seconds, you can hit the checkbox and select apply. And now you got seconds going on down there. So that's nice to see as well. I like seconds. I usually use that, especially during the day. And so then we got our calendar settings. You can change your time zone. You can show week numbers in the calendar and so forth. So very easy to configure there. And since we have our settings open, I'm just going to hit the home button to go back to the intro page. This is typically what you see when you open up your settings. And so we got our breeze or breeze dark by default. And so I'm going to switch to the dark theme here and see how that looks and hit apply. And wow, it even gave us the dark version of the wallpaper. Very cool. I am liking that. So I wasn't expecting that. I know I kind of see that in GNOME, but yeah, nice to see that here too. Very cool. And clicking your file folders, that's pretty important. By default, it selects them when you click it, which is what I like personally. So if you go in here and you just select, you can click on any of these to highlight the folders and then double click to go inside the folders, which is what most people are used to. But if you like the single click thing, then this is where you would change that. So if I change that to opens them, hit apply, then come back to our folder. Now if I click on documents, it takes me right inside directly. So if you like a single click as opposed to a double click, and maybe you want to just highlight a few if you need to manipulate the folders or copy them, then that's kind of a way to do it when you're in single click mode or double, either way. But personally, I'm more comfortable with selects them, so I'm going to kind of go back to that, but I thought I'd cover it anyway. And let's take a look at our wallpapers since we're right here. So I'm going to hit change wallpaper, and then we can see a whole bunch of them, and wow, a pretty impressive looking collection of wallpapers here. And that one's kind of cool, and it gives me a quick preview of the wallpaper. So I'm just going to minimize a few of these so we can see our wallpaper better. Very nice. So a little shot of Rio there, I think. And Carolina something or other, KWin. Yeah, I butchered that pronunciation, I'm pretty sure. And Julius Silver, very nice. That's beautiful too. Wow, that makes me feel nice and warm, especially on a cold day. That's something I'd want to have up in the wintertime. And that's a cool blurred background, and our Mojave kind of shot here. And then, of course, our mountain, which is what we were defaulting to. And the mountain, you can see, is in a dual format, available as a dark or a light, depending on your theme. Very cool. And then we got our mouse actions, which typically I leave at default. So your vertical scroll to switch desktops and your right button for your standard menu. So in other words, if I come over here and if I were to, of course, I'm on the Latte dock, but I'm not sure how you would do that with a Latte. But if I had my standard KDE menu up here and I had the desktop switcher there, I could roll my mouse wheel and switch between desktop 1 and 2 and so forth. And then your right button is your standard menu. So if I right click over here, I got quick access to our configure desktop and wallpaper, display settings, icons, and so forth, even refresh desktop. But I can change that if I wanted to. So if I wanted to maybe, let's say application launcher, let's hit that real quick, apply it, come over here, right click, and now we got our app launcher. So very cool. Now we got easy access to any of our apps. So if I don't want to go down here, I just want to be right here and do a right click. Now I got easy access to it and so forth. Got all kinds of options, activities. So if you create extra activities, you can do that. Switch your windows, paste, standard menu, application launcher, standard Latte menu. So I'm assuming if I hit apply there and come over here, now when I roll right click, then it looks like I got the menu for our Latte settings. So here's our layout. And since we're in here, this is kind of cool. So this is our default BROS. But I could go with like Plasma and select that, or even Unity. And now we got the Plasma look because I selected Plasma. So how cool is that? I like that. So it kind of really just kind of modified my Latte dock. Really nice. What's the default in here again? Okay. The other default standard, forgot what you call the menu thingy there. So this is our KDE menu launcher that you see default in many, many KDE apps. So it really is the standard Plasma look. Very nice. All right. So I think that's a +2. And then, of course, if I want the layout for Unity, so I like the fact that they got these default layouts here. So now if I go with that and then just kind of go off to the side and then right click, select Unity instead, then it should pop up over here on the side. And there it is. So there's our Unity look. Really great. So I like that preset. We got our top bar here, easy access, our user, and our logout here, new session, and so forth. So that's right there in the middle. Very nice. Easy access to our calendar, hidden icons, and so forth. And then our menu here, Unity style. Beautiful. Another big plus. Let's look at our menu in the Unity. And here we got a full screen. Wow. So I like that. We got our full screen menu here and access to widgets and everything. So this is like you would see in your alternative menus in the KDE Plasma. Really like seeing that. I am really impressed here with the whole thing here and the pre-configured layouts. Loving it. I guess I'll go back to BROS since that's just kind of the default. So I am liking that. Of course, if you're not in here in our folder settings, you can simply right click over the Latte dock here and just go up to layouts and select them from here. So that's where you would normally go rather than where we are here with our right button settings. So we're just kind of playing with the right button settings. And then we have our standard menu, of course, which is what you would have by default when you right click here on the desktop. So that's a handy setting. And at the same time, we discovered our Unity Latte default layouts as well. Nice. I gotta say, I am just totally impressed with this so far. And then, of course, here we got all our standard stuff here, our KDE settings that I've gone over in many videos. We got our application style, our Plasma style, our color settings. So here you can adjust your accents if you like playing around with your color accents. And right now we're using the accent color from our current color scheme, but you can also choose them from the current wallpaper, which is probably somewhat similar. And if I hit apply, then it should light change over here and now kind of change the shade here to kind of match. And so did the icons here. Our folder colors also are now matching our wallpaper here, which is very cool. Or you can just kind of choose your own. So you could go with something like this pinkish color here, and you can see the icons have changed as well. And that matches quite well as also. And then we got this kind of salmon color, and I'm liking that too, really. That is really nice. I might actually go with that. So we can choose all these, or you can even open up a custom color palette and just choose literally any color you can think of, pretty much. So that's nice. And I kind of like that orange. I'm going to kind of go with that, I think. And then we have our Mojave style theming, so we could change our windows here, our decorations to resemble a Mojave theme on a Mac OS. So that kind of gives it more of a Mac feel with the Mojave here and the menu down below. So that's something you can go with. Personally, I like good old Breeze, but just for fun, we can do that. And the rounded corners, again, very nice. And your font settings, icons, if you want to change your icons, you can do it here. And let's see what they got to choose from. So pretty much the standard Ubuntu stuff. And the theming is just really great. I am so liking this. And speaking of theming, that's another reason I like OnlyOffice. A lot of times when you change the theming, you have issues in LibreOffice, and you got to go in the view settings and change the toolbar themes in there to kind of compensate. So you don't have to deal with that issue in OnlyOffice, which I'm liking. So that perhaps could have been like a inspiration maybe for running OnlyOffice, although I feel like it's a little bit lighter weight too. And we can even change our splash screen. So as you remember when we were logging in, this was our default splash screen. I can hit the play button here to get a preview of our splash screen. And this is what we see when we log in. So you probably remember that from when we logged in. And if we wanted to change the splash screen like to the Mojave light to go with our Mojave theme, it's the same one. Okay. But here we got our breeze. So the breeze is the other alternative by default. And so this is what most KDE users are familiar with as a default splash screen on many distros. Or you can get none. And then, of course, you can choose your own splash screen by going up here and selecting Get New. And that really applies to icons and application styles and themes and all that. You can just click on the Get New and just pull them right off the internet from online, from Plasma's repos, so to speak. So here we got different splash screens. You could get a Windows 11 type splash screen if you wanted to, an art style splash, cool, and a Baphomet splash screen, cool. So if you want to feel evil, then you can go in here and like install the Baphomet and and hit install. And there was 3 choices there. I don't really know the difference. And then we got a Windows 10 splash screen style, Colorado Avalanche, nice. So it looks like we got some sports related things there too. That's very cool. I'm not a real sports nut, but I like that. And there's something with a kitty. I'm going to put that one on there too, just for fun. Excellent. So now if we just kind of back out of here, you can see them in our splash screen settings. So if I wanted to go with Baphomet and kind of scare people that come walking in the room, I can log in and you would see this. Wow. That's kind of cool, actually, the animation and everything. Cool. So welcome to hell. I guess that would be kind of appropriate for a Windows machine. So yeah, nice. And then the other splash screen that we downloaded was this guy. So if you logged in, we can preview what it would look like. And I like that. That's really cool. Got the kitty there and he's got his choice of toys to play with. Very nice. I like that, actually. That is something I would probably go with. I'm going to apply that. So now we got the kitty splash screen. When we log in, we'll see that. One thing I really like about KDE, you just get so many cool choices from the community there. And then under our window management, of course, typically I don't really do much in here, but your KWin scripts are kind of cool. If you like using some of these scripts, you can go in here. I like using the minimize all shortcut. To me, that's kind of handy. If you hit that and hit apply, I don't know if that'll show up on Latte dock. Yeah, so I don't know where that would go, actually. I think that would show up on a KDE panel, but probably not in Latte dock. But I could easily just put a widget in there anyway, just by right-clicking, selecting Add Widgets. And then I think it would be Show Desktop, maybe? Maybe minimize all window. So I could just take this and just grab it and drag it down into my Latte dock, and it should just kind of stick down there. I could put it like right there, and now I have easy access to it right from there. So now if I hit that, I got all my windows open. Now I can just hit minimize desktop or minimize all at my leisure. And somehow I got that in there too. So that's probably from the one that I checked before. So I must have put it in the middle of the desktop maybe. Cool. Okay. So that kind of solved that mystery too. Excellent. So minimize all. And then of course our users, as usual, I typically will click on the icon here and just select something. And what do I want this week? Looks like a lot of choices in this one here. I like it. Maybe the multicolored bird. I like it. Budgie cool. And as you can see, we're administrator by default. And so I'm going to hit apply here. Got our regional settings, applications, your default applications there, KDE wallet, online accounts. So if you're into online accounts, you can select here and add some things here like Microsoft or Google and so forth. And we got our input devices. Typically under here, under keyboard, I like to turn on my numlock because I use the numlock quite a bit on my keyboard. So I like having that on. Otherwise, if you use the extra keys on your keyboard, there'll be no numlock when you go for the numbers. So we'll have that on. And then under mouse, of course, you can use left-handed mode here. Typically, I just keep this by default. Game controller, graphic tablet, and touchpad settings as well. And then your display and monitor. So if you need to change your resolution, you can do that right here and just change your resolution. For me, default is 1920 by 1080. Compositor settings, gamma, night color, and so forth. Also under display configuration, you can set your refresh rate here. And for me, it's at 75 already. And you can even choose from which arrangement to go with. Nice. Then audio settings, which we were in earlier, multimedia, driver manager, and so forth. And we were in about this system previously. And then our software update settings. So update manually or automatically. If you do automatically, your updates will just automatically be applied. Typically by default, that would be manually, and ask your permission first. So those are our settings, and the Dolphin is looking good here. And then here we can change our view modes here, so we can go up here and select compact view if you want a different view for your icons. And then of course we got our details, which by default shows our little plus buttons, so we can kind of see the, I forgot what you call those, like the little subfolder hierarchy here. Which is kind of nice. And then, of course, if you don't want to see those, we can just go into our property settings, click on our little burger menu here, and hit configure, and then configure Dolphin. And it gives us a lot more options that we can go with. And typically, the defaults are really pretty good here. Here's your preview settings if you don't want to preview certain types of folders. If you want to be able to preview files on remote devices like a USB stick or whatever, you want to be able to see the previews of your picture and movie files, you can change this to a setting here, like any file under, say, 15 megabits, bytes, and apply it, and then it'll show you previews on external devices. The reason that's off by default, I think, is because it just kind of saves on resources. Because I imagine it could tend to slow down your devices, your overall system probably. And then our startup, our view modes, so you can tweak your different modes. Like right now we're in details, so if I come over here, maybe I don't want the folders to be expandable, I can uncheck that, hit apply, and then those lines that you saw connecting all the folders kind of disappear. And so some people may be more comfortable with that. However, I kind of like being able to kind of drill down into the other folders. So if I hit expandable and hit apply, then I can just hit the little arrow here, like for example in my boot folder. And when I click that, it opens it up, and then we can see more folders within there. So it kind of structures it in a very organized way. And that's kind of nice. When you get used to that, it kind of spoils you a bit. So I think the default is really good. And I'm not sure that was always default. I think back in the day it wasn't, but I could be wrong there. And then our trash settings as well. So we can delete files automatically if they've been in there for a certain period of time, like 7 days is the default. But of course you can change that to 30 days or whatever. And then you can even limit your size if you wish to 10% of your hard drive space. In this case, it would be 6.29 gigs, and then show a warning if the trash is full and it reaches that limit. Always a good thing to have. And then if you want to leave user feedback, that's the place. And the other thing I like is a split window view. That's the other cool feature in Dolphin, is you can just do a quick split window there and just go between windows. And that's nice. So I could have my home folder here and maybe my root folder there. And of course, that's kind of an alternative. So I can close that. That's kind of an alternative to opening a new tab, like with Control T. I can put another tab here and then just tab between the two. So I could be in this folder and then hit this tab and be over here, maybe in my home folder. So the tab is the other option, but if you like a side-by-side split view, I can go into my home folder, hit split, and then I can have a split view in my home folder, and then back in my bin folder, I got my single view. So a very versatile file manager, Dolphin is really cool. So there you are, Dolphin, excellent. And I might as well just leave that open for aesthetics like I always do. And I did remember the last place I was at, which was the desktop. So very cool. And I think I'm ready to give my 2 cents. I really like this BROS. This is something I would totally install. It is based on Kubuntu, so you know it's got a rock solid foundation to build off of. And then they added in all these great applications right off the bat. So I don't really have to tweak it. It's already pretty much tweaked the way I like it right off the bat. And the Latte dock is really nice. It's working great. So I'm not seeing any issues there. They gave us a Muon option for the package manager, and then this, of course, Discover. So those are two decent options there for installing applications in a GUI. And then, of course, there's good old console to install that way, which is what I prefer just because it's faster for me. And again, the Kubuntu base is just really, Kubuntu I really like all on its own, but this just takes Kubuntu over the top. And I'm really liking the fact that they just theme this out so beautifully, and everything seems really flawless. I got to tell you, and the addition of the Chat GPT Plasmoid down here, I think was really a nice touch to have that on there by default. And the layout is just very intuitive and easy to work with. And I really actually like the branding there, the BR with the cool logo there in the background. I think that's kind of cool. So I like that. And again, I think BR probably means Brazil or Brazilian distro. And I think it's just an all around quality, beautiful distro. And would I recommend it to install? Heck yeah, of course I would. I mean, what's not to love about this? And the default theming and the wallpapers, lots of wallpapers that are beautiful in here. And so it just seems really rock solid. And even in my test machine here, it just doesn't really give me any headaches, and it continues to feel snappy. And if you're a Mac user, you're going to be extra comfortable. But I think even Windows users would also be comfortable because Windows 11 pretty much kind of sticks everything in the middle there anyway, if I remember right. So the line is becoming more blurred between the Mac and the Windows layouts, I think, over time. And of course, the beautiful seamless theming across KDE here is something that is always impressing me, along with a new kernel and quite up-to-date software. So you don't feel so left behind like you do in like your Debian distros here. And of course, this is the 23.04, so it is really that interim. And this is an extra good interim update, I think, for Ubuntu, especially with the KDE just kind of having some extra good updates here in it. So with that, I hope this was helpful. I know I enjoyed exploring here on BR Linux, and I really like this. And if you want to get a copy of BR Linux, I got a link in the description below, so be sure to give that a try. Maybe load it into a VM or just stick it on a laptop that you're not using right now and just give it a spin. I think you're going to be as impressed as I am. So there you go. I hope that was helpful. And if it was, don't forget to leave that thumbs up and hit subscribe. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.